All right, let's talk about crime and punishment. And look, forget everything you might think about some dusty old classic. Fyodor Dostoevsky's masterpiece isn't just a novel, it's one of the first and maybe one of the greatest psychological thrillers ever written. Seriously, it takes us deep inside the mind of a killer, not to figure out who did it, but to understand the punishment that starts the very second the crime is over.
Okay, so let's just get right to the heart of it. The entire book hangs on this one single explosive question. Just imagine for a second. If you could get rid of a truly awful person, a parasite on society, and use their money to help hundreds of people, would you do it? I mean, do the ends justify the means? This is the very question that gets the whole story rolling.
So, who's the guy wrestling with this huge idea? His name is Rodion Raskolnikov. And you've got to picture him. He's brilliant, but he's also dirt poor, a former student just wasting away in this tiny, suffocating attic room in the slums of St. Petersburg. He's alone, he's proud, and he's completely obsessed with a very, very dangerous idea. And this is that idea, the one that's at the heart of his downfall. Raskolnikov truly believes that all of humanity is split into two groups. You've got your ordinary people, who have to follow the rules, and then you have the extraordinary people, the Napoleons of the world. He thinks these people have an inherent right to step over obstacles, and yeah, that includes other people, if it's for some higher purpose that could help all of humanity. It's basically a philosophical permission slip to break all the rules. And of course, he has the perfect person to test his theory on, an old pawnbroker. In his eyes, she's not even a person. She's a louse, a leech who feeds on the misery of poor people like him. So in his mind, killing her isn't really a crime. It's simple math. Her death would be a net positive for the world, and more importantly, it would prove that he is one of those extraordinary men.
But, and this is a huge but, there is a massive difference between a neat little theory you cook up in your head and the bloody, messy, chaotic reality of actually taking a human life. This is where his brilliant plan completely falls apart.
See, on paper, the plan was clean. It was supposed to be a rational act, a philosophical statement. But the reality? Oh, it is an absolute disaster. It's messy, he panics, he's frantic, and then the one thing he didn't plan for happens. The pawnbroker's kind, gentle half-sister, Lizaveta, just happens to walk in. And in a moment of pure animal panic, Raskolnikov kills her too. Just like that, his rational crime has become a senseless, savage double murder. So here's the absolute crux of it. The act doesn't make him feel powerful or free. It doesn't prove he's the next Napoleon, not even close. Instead, it completely shatters him. The moment that axe falls, he's not an extraordinary man. He's just a scared, sick killer, and he's just plunged himself headfirst into a personal hell of guilt and paranoia. And this right here gets us to the core of the whole novel. Dostoevsky isn't writing a detective story, not at all. The real punishment isn't a jail cell in Siberia. It's the prison he can't escape from, the one inside his own mind. His grand theory is just instantly crushed by the weight of what he's done. He gets sick with fever. He's totally convinced that everyone knows, that everyone's looking at him. One minute, he's desperately trying to justify himself with his intellectual pride, and the next, he is just drowning in self-hatred. And all of this leads to his main punishment. He has totally, completely cut himself off from the rest of humanity. Now, while this war is raging inside his head, a new threat appears on the outside. Porfiry Petrovich, the lead investigator. And this guy is not your typical cop. He's a master psychologist. He suspects Raskolnikov's almost right away. But instead of hunting for fingerprints, he starts this brilliant psychological cat-and-mouse game, using Raskolnikov's own ideas to try and trap him. So, Raskolnikov is at rock bottom. He's trapped by his own guilt. He's being played by this detective. And it's at this low point that he meets two people who come to represent the two completely different paths he could take out of this mess. On one side, there's Sonya. She's been forced into prostitution just to keep her family from starving, a life of incredible suffering. But here's the thing, where Raskolnikov uses his intellect to justify murder, Sonya finds her strength in deep, unshakable faith and humility. She is his total opposite. She accepts suffering and believes the way out is through compassion, not through violence. And then, on the other side, you have this guy, Svidrigailov. He's a rich, corrupt man who also lives completely without morals. But unlike Raskolnikov, he doesn't have any grand theory to justify it. He's just empty inside. Svidrigailov is like a dark mirror, showing Raskolnikov where a life without any moral compass ultimately leads, to a black hole of despair and self-destruction. The real turning point comes in this incredible scene. Raskolnikov goes to Sonya totally tormented and asks her to read him the Bible story of Lazarus, the man who Jesus raised from the dead. And in that moment, what he's really asking is, can someone like me, someone who is spiritually dead, ever be brought back to life?
Yeah, that moment with Sonya, it plants a seed. It's the beginning of the end for his whole extraordinary man theory, and it's the first incredibly painful step he takes toward becoming human again.
Sonya tells him there's only one way he can ever find peace. He has to go out in public, confess, and accept his punishment. And after one last, agonizing struggle with his own pride, he actually does it. He walks into the police station and confesses everything. It's a total surrender of his intellectual arrogance.
So, he gets sentenced to 8 years of hard labor in Siberia, but the story's not over, not by a long shot. At first, he's the same old Raskolnikov, arrogant, still convinced his theory was kinda right, and all the other prisoners can't stand him. But Sonya, she follows him there, and her quiet, constant, unconditional love slowly starts to break through his cold exterior. The final change isn't some big intellectual breakthrough. It's purely emotional. He has a dream, gets sick, and one day, just looking at Sonya, he finally breaks down and weeps. And it's in that moment that he realizes he loves her, and his true healing can finally begin.
And this is just part of Dostoevsky's genius. He doesn't give us a neat little happy ending. Raskolnikov isn't suddenly cured. The book ends with the promise of a new beginning, not the beginning itself. It tells us that the story of his gradual renewal, of his difficult journey back to life, is only just starting.
So we're left with this final massive question. Yeah, Raskolnikov ends up in a physical prison in Siberia. But as the book shows so brilliantly, he was trapped long before his arrest, wasn't he? Trapped in the prison of his own mind. And it forces you to ask, what's the real punishment? Is it the one society gives you, with walls and bars? Or is it the one we can't escape, the one we carry inside ourselves?